Hello, fellow Mythrunians. This is Paul, and this is another weekly live stream. Tonight we're going to work on some shader stuff, which may or may not be impossible. We're going to see. I have some crazy ideas that I want to try out to try to get the choppable blocks looking a little better when we chop them up for some of the textures like logs and wood paneling and stuff. So we'll go ahead and thank the patrons. Oh, by the way, in the lower there's the link to get the last version of the engine from January. I'm trying real hard to wrap this release up, so there should be one soon. Thank the patrons. You guys help out a lot. Definitely makes me feel good to know there's support out there. So thanks, guys. And without too much further preamble, we'll go ahead and get started. If you guys remember last time we were playing around with see how many people does YouTube say I have on. We have 5 concurrent viewers already. Nice. So you can kind of see the little butterfly flying around there. Last week we were working on getting those to spawn in, and actually you can see another one up here. So I think they're a little too frequent just because in this area we do have a lot of flowers, but you can see there's 39 active bodies, which includes mine, I think, or 35 active bodies. Actually, that's not a bad. See, there's a lot of flowers around here, so lots of you see all the logging down there as we cross boundaries. Yeah, but see, there's a butterfly up there, flying high. And so as we wander around, there'd be lots of butterflies. I finally got all that stuff working. Yeah, so we just found one here, one up there. So that's all good. I'm still refactoring the model view state. So this is still the old one. So choppable blocks doesn't work quite right yet. Anyway, so I got all that working. That was a lot of fun. I had to fix a lot of little kind of subtle scripting bugs that turned out to be kind of complicated. But it's all good. Another thing I added was, currently everywhere we go, we jog. And so I added, if you hit the X key, it toggles walk mode, which finally lets her walk. The only other way to walk before was to use the joystick. But now you can actually put her in walk mode. And then if you run, it takes her to jog. And you slow down again. And it... anyway, yeah, we're... between the slowness, we're generating a lot of logging down there because of all the butterflies being spawned in. And I haven't turned off that logging yet. But anyway, so yeah, X toggles that on and off. I want to have some other indication, but... So before I get too far, this is what I'm talking about. There's this... in a sense, we're mimicking a 3D texture in the sense that, towards the borders, it looks like there's, a thick trunk, and in the middle there's this sort of wood pulp that looks sawn. But if you were to sort of chop a piece out of this, you'd have to make the texture coordinates work with that. It's not automatic. And so when we get to the point where we're chopping up a block, what am I swing down? Let me think. Where could I go to show what I'm talking about? Well, I could put a block down. I just don't like the way the dirt texture currently works. So... yeah, actually, there's some dirt over there. So let's go back to the axe. Let's chop one of these blocks. I'll show you. So, like, when I chop this, it's going to convert it into a 4x4x4 mini blocks, but with a carved texture, which means it kind of stretches it over the whole thing. So, so as we, chop this up. Oops, there we go. It's easier to do when you're in this mode, right, to see what you're hitting. But so this is now, in the game engine, this is now 4x4 blocks, and it's, stretched the texture over the whole thing. And that works fine until you get cases like the tree trunk, which I actually can't make a square version because we don't have cubes for that yet. There, what did I call it? I called it wood ramps. Yeah. So here's an example of one that goes poorly. Right, we've got all these, side wood textures, and if I hit carved, they go flat, and these angles don't work out right. Good after evening, yeah. Thanks, Lando. And so the idea, if we can come up with a proper 3D texture mapping, using some ideas from like triplanar mapping, which is used for certain kinds of terrain, essentially depending on the angle of the face, we'll use a different texture or set of texture coordinates so that we can deal with these cases. And it's especially a problem for, for any of these that have like multiple textures. The grass texture is a similar problem. If we went to, I want grass, not, so the grass has a similar problem. See, these little ones, they just end up with, it doesn't know that it doesn't know that there's going to be, another block to come along. So it doesn't know to put dirt on top of those little ones. It's just making, big giant ones. And so ideally we'd like some kind of texture material that's aware of its 3D-ness and knows that, for these guys down here, it should still be dirt because it's below some threshold. So, whoops. Actually, I probably want to save this just for later. So like in this case, over with the tree over here, within some, so let's pretend this is square for a second because the roundness is the next thing I'll deal with. But so within some threshold of the edge, if we chopped into here, it would use the side texture. Beyond that, it would use sort of some center, pulp raw wood texture, so that if you were to cut this, like say you were cut this in half vertically and you could see inside of it, it would be a cross section instead of just more of the bark texture. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly. At any rate, we won't be doing that in the game. We'll be doing it in a much faster way because I've developed a little test program that we can use to develop the material, because we're going to do a lot of GLSL coding tonight, which is kind of a different take. So I've got this little sample geometry I made in Blocked, and I've loaded it into my scripter tool. And so this is, a bunch of little blocks in it. And in Mythruna right now, when I want to turn this into, a chopped block object, I rescale all the texture coordinates. But that's why it's kind of just a stopgap solution, because the material itself needs to be smart about how it stretches all these. And old Mythruna actually did do that or the second version of the engine, to apply dirt to textures and stuff, which new Mythruna will get eventually as well. But I think what we want to end up with is, I didn't log into the whiteboard, so it's going to have to reconnect me. So I think what we want to end up with is, for the tree trunk, we want a top texture that has the border built into it, like this, right? And that's the, so the raw wood texture. And then we want a side texture that has just a border on each side. And that should cover us. So if anything from the side would use this one, with some kind of, raw wood grain in here, and anything facing down would use this one. And then when anything facing the side within this area, so we need to be aware that there's some, border, that if this was a side, we'd still display the bark. So bark, 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 up until we start cutting through this area, and then we would do this. So we're going to make some textures, playing with some GLSL materials. Hopefully we can do some cool stuff. And then what the next step is what I was kind of talking about last week, which is which is in the shader, to morph this mesh so that any coordinate in this mesh gets reprojected into like a cylinder or a sphere. So if you imagine there's a circle here, every point, like this point, we would figure out, well, what's its distance from the center, this way and this way, and then we would figure out how far to push it in so that it would be more like this. And so then you end up, all of your square blocks end up being in a cylindrical shape, which is what will allow us the flexibility to chop up logs into little bits using the same quote unquote technology that I'm using to chop up the square blocks now. It would work for cylinders, for tree trunks, later for potentially carving tools. For example, we can do the same thing for spheres, which may make it so that you can actually peel an apple, stuff like that, right? Because you can peel off the outer shell and get to the insides and stuff like that. If you cut an apple in half, you'd see the outer skin and the inner. So, in fact, apple texture may be one thing we play with when we get to the sphere stuff. So I'm hoping I can get this part done maybe in the first hour, and then we can play with some warping of textures in the second hour, or something to that effect, if we are making good progress. So the first thing we want to do is see about scaling this texture in the shader. And I'll leave this up so that we can potentially talk about it. So this is just a small sort of palette texture that was used for the old blockhead stuff, just because it would make a material out of each of these little cells. And so I have this little script that allows me to change the material parameters and things. But what we want to do is go in here, and I think we're going to add some. This is JMonkey Engine's material definition file, and that's where it tells us which the vertex and frag shaders are. We're eventually going to mess with the vertex shader. Right now we're just messing with the frag shader, I believe. That's all we're going to. Anyway, so we want a sort of carve scale or something. I don't know what I really will call it, but for now, and we'll make the default of that 1. And I think that we'll make this a define, so it's like not taking up a material parameter slot for real. So carve scale. And so instantly what I could do is go into the frag shader. How do I want to do this? Like, if I just scale the texture coordinate, it's not really going to do what I want to do, but I can just do carve scale. So that pound define that's generated for me. So if we were to run this again, so let's take a screenshot, right? So let's run it again. This starts quick, so there's no reason to have any kind of reload technology today. Yeah, so it did not change anything. Oh, because we're still 1. Well, okay, yeah. But see, now I can change this in script. So here, when we mess with the new material, I can do things like set float, carve, scale, 0.1, right? And that should oops. Is that not what I called it? Carve scale. Is it really using my... That's the new material. Okay, so we hit a point where... Oh, cave scale. Well, it's important to spell it right. There we go. Okay, so now... Yeah, so... It didn't... So it's not repeating that texture, right? It's not smart about... Yeah, he set cave scale. Thanks! This is awesome that you guys are pointing out my bugs to me. That's kind of one of the reasons I like to do this. So it's basically just taking that first little section of the texture, and because it's not smart about coordinates and things. And so what we need to do is combine the position and the scale, and really what we want to say, we want the scale to work different than it is, essentially. What we want to say is that our scale is actually bigger. We're 4 times bigger than we want to be. Now this isn't going to do what we want either. Yeah, but we're going to then edit the vertex shader to give us texture coordinates that are based on sort of the position in real space, and then we can use that to be anyway. I'll show you what I mean, but I have to stop the app. I can't keep it running for that. So somewhere we pull up the texture coordinates. Text coord. Okay, so we get the text coordinate here. We have the model space position. If you think of it like, oops, wrong one. You think of it like the, if you had your big cube made of 4x4 blocks, the model space positions are, these grid lines, and then each of these little guys has a texture coordinate from 0 to 1, 0 to 1 kind of thing. And so we want to make a base texture coordinate that's based on sort of the actual position divided by our scale. So 4 in this case, we would divide by that. And so we get 0.25, 0.5, and so on. And then if there's any other additional texture coordinate, we'd add it to that. So that'd be just kind of our base coordinate. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all. It makes sense to me. So let me think about it. Let's call it base text coord equals model space position divided by carve scale, and then text coord equals base text coord plus text coord. Okay, that's a nice thing in GLS, so you can add vectors together and stuff. So I think that does what I want, and then I need to yank this stuff out because we don't use that anymore. The texture coordinate is actually correct now. And this covers up what I want to see, so let's go there and let's see what is this thing. Maybe it did good things, maybe it did bad things. Shaders get weird sometimes. Oh boy. Oh. That was on 755. Oh, yeah. That's right. You got to pick a direction. Okay, so first we're going to, based on the normal, we've got to pick how we want to turn a 3D coordinate into a 2D coordinate. But right now we're just going to say XY, so it'll only be right from one direction. You'll see what I mean. One way is going to be stretched and the other way will be scaled. Nothing is scaled. Why for art thou not scaled? What else have I messed up? Let me make sure. Carve scale is set to 4. We're dividing everything by 4. What if we set text coord, just set the texture coordinate to 0. This is the make sure it's even being used. Kilroy debugging. You end up doing that a lot in shader programming, just putting sort of canary code in. Okay, so it is paying attention to that. And for some reason, I know why. So if we had made this just base chord, it would also have worked in this particular instance. It's because text chord is still from 0 to 1, and so it's doing weird things, I think. We'll see. I believe it's making things weird. Yeah, okay, so see, our angles aren't going to be right, and you see that only from the front, is it properly stretched, and then from the side, because we haven't dealt with that, we have to pick a direction that we want to interpret things. And so that's where we'll go with next. And also, it's interesting, the angles. Okay, so yeah, so I was trying to interpret the internal texture coordinates for things like this, like the partial blocks. But I think what I was doing is also not right, even if I were to divide by 4. Because the positions are also, we don't know what the base position is. So we have to 100% do this from 3D coordinates. I'm thinking while I go. So we can just say we want to wait till we have a normal. Model space normal is fine. We can base it on that. So first of all, let's float. So we want to characterize. I'm going to start adding comments. Characterize direction of the vertex. And see, this is why it won't work for round things, but for flat things this will work. Float xy equals max of, we want the normal, not trusting myself to type correctly. We want whatever the max of, oh yeah, z is where I was there. XZ. So whatever the max of XZ is. So if model space normal y is greater than XZ, then we are mostly facing up. In fact, we could probably get away with, no, that's the way we want it. And in that case, we want text coord to be fully based on XZ. And at some point I'll have to deal with facing up versus facing down if I want things to map correctly. Otherwise, in old lore, using if statements in shaders is bad, but not really. So else if x is greater than z, so then it's mostly facing east-west, right? Then it's mostly facing east-west. We want to make it based on zy. And if it's otherwise facing mostly north-south, then we want to base it on xy. And we don't need this anymore. Okay, so that should make it look right in all directions, potentially. Or I've screwed something up. Oh, I definitely have screwed something up. Oh, I know what else. So this will look right from positive directions. No? Looks right from the top only. So I've done something, and okay, so there's tops. So I've done something else wrong in this. Oh. I just put math there with no assignment. That's what I did. Isn't that awesome? You guys get to watch. I hope at least one of you was shouting at the screen. Whoa, hello. Okay, so that's all. Oh, yeah. So this is the other problem from two directions because I didn't do an absolute value. So this needs to be maybe S of that. Maybe S of that. We want just the magnitude. The magnitude, dude. Actually, let's it's just habit to not want to do these more than once. I think the shader compiler would be smart enough to know that they only need to be done once, but I prefer to be explicit. So then this is ny, oops, ny, let's call it nxc, and then this is nx, nz. So basically, if the magnitude of the max of xc is less than the magnitude of the up direction, then we're facing up, and we'll use xz as our texture coordinate. If the east-west portion of the vector is greater than the north-south one, then we use zy as our technique. Sometimes I read those back for you guys. Sometimes I also read them back for me, just to make sure I didn't screw something up. Okay, that's what we want it to look like. Scaled on all sides, right? So we've carved this out of thing, and now we got to pick better textures to use. And so we're going to make some textures and then select them. I think first I'm going to deal with basically a solid cube so that I can use the same textures for all the directions. And so we're going to go into Photopea or Photopia. And I'm going to use my wood texture main resources textures. I wonder if I have the okay, well for now we're going to use this one and this one because I've already got those full textures, and then I'll go back and I'll make a one without the tops and the bottoms when we're dealing with the different directions. For now, we'll be able to use this to avoid dealing with different directions. So I need to move these, I need to copy these over. Those are the sideways ones. These are the regular ones. So we're going to get all of those. And take them over to here, where tools, scripter, source, main, resources, textures, paste. Okay. And see, I used to do this. I made normal maps JPEGs, which is really bad. You shouldn't do that. So I think we can just use these. We don't need to use Photopea yet because we're not that's interesting. I can go and open them, but we don't need them. So, because we're just going to use them raw for now. All right, so what I want is, well, let's first, we want potentially multiple textures. We're going to need yeah, a second set of a second diffuse map, normal map. We need a second set of all of these, at least a second set. So those will be for the outside, which will be basically the same as everything else. I don't use height maps anymore. I did copy them over though, didn't I? Well, for now we only use diffuse and normal map. And so I will... I'll stick these down here at the end where I'm putting all the other carved stuff. Inner diffuse map. Eventually we'll need at least 2 of these for inner diffuse, east-west, inner diffuse, you know, actually top, bottom too, yeah. X, Y, and Z versions. Okay. So what else do I want? I probably want, well, I can make it correct later. But we want to have a varying that says varying, let's call it an int, texture direction, and we'll set that to a different value depending on which way we picked. We're going to need that eventually. The other thing we're going to need is a threshold. So call that the shell margin. And while I have photo P up, yeah, I didn't actually open all the other ones, did I? So this whole image is, yeah, 128 by 128, and that little part of it is like 8 pixels. Yeah, so whatever 8 over 128 is, .0625. So we'll default that to there, so I don't have to set it just yet. Okay, inner diffuse map, inner normal map, we want to set those. Actually, we can go ahead and set the inner margin. I can default this to 1.0, that's fine. That's set texture inner diffuse map. Yeah, so far, actually, let's set everything to outer, to the outer texture for a minute. What did I call those? bark128.jpg. Okay. So what is it? App asset manager load texture bark. Is it bark-128? That's how good my memory is. bark128. bark128.jpg. Oop. And clever JME users would have noticed that I haven't put the textures thing in. So let's just make sure we're really loading what we think we're loading. We're not using that other texture yet, so it doesn't matter. Let's make sure that I haven't fat fingered something. Wow, we got 10 concurrent viewers this early in the stream. That's great. Whoopsie. Once again, if you're new to the stream, up in the upper left corner is the you can find the link to the January version of the engine. You can also must have used the wrong set float inner margin. Did I not call it an inner margin? Shell margin, that's what I'm okay. Up in the upper left is the link to grab the January version of the engine and a link to the Discord. So we should be able to do that. Alright, so we're getting there. Looks really ugly. Why does it look so ugly? The scale should just be stretching it over the whole thing. Actually, we should get a repeat because I did 4, so it should repeat after here. But that is weird. Yeah, it does kind of, yeah, very chocolatey. So it's definitely loading the texture. What if I change this back to 1? Yeah. Something is no bueno. What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? Future chocolate biome. Yeah. It's funny, early on in the development of Mythruna, I accidentally did something that replaced every block in an area, you know, trees, leaves, everything with stone. And I thought that's a really cool effect. Someday we're going to have like some magic blight that turns everything to stone, because it looked kind of cool. So sometimes those kind of accidents really do lead to things. Why is it being stupid? For the moment, let me just take out the special code in case that's what's screwing it up. And there's no special code over here. I already took that out. Okay, so let's just make sure I haven't done something dumb. Never underestimate my ability to do something dumb. Okay, so I have done something dumb. But it was working for the other texture. So we want that stretch, and actually we want it to be 8 anyway, so we can yeah, and that was set to no, it's set to JMonkey engine automatically converts, unless it wasn't. So let's put this code back, and we'll leave that new code out. I don't think it's causing a problem, but just in case it is. Alright. Oh, it's like even changing. Oh, it's got local lighting. That's right. We potentially we need to set more than we're setting. No, because it's already got the lighting built into it. Because I saved it from Blockhead. And it works with the other texture, and it works when I don't have my special code in there. So what part of it is messing it up? So let's take out just two of the directions and see if they go back to being right and everything else is wrong. Yep. So what if we just multiply, let's just pick one, model space xy times 0.1. What happens if I do that? Oh. Oh, model space pos. That's why I cut and paste things, because I'm guaranteed to type them incorrectly while people are watching. We shouldn't be messing around this long. Yeah, so it's being stretched in both directions, which is incorrect. But if we switch back to the original texture, it goes back to working, right? Yeah. Why is this texture not working? And is this also doing the weird lighting thing? No, it's not. That's bizarre. Oh. Oh. That's interesting. Is it because we used the same texture twice? Because now it's not even using the bark at all. Okay, that's strange. Let's make sure we haven't cached something weird. Okay, so it had just cached something weird. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this out here. The carve scale was set to 1, but we were still zooming in. Oh. This is bizarre, guys. Because, man, sometimes shaders make me think I'm going crazy. So if we go back to this, it shouldn't be zoomed in at all. Oh yeah, because we put that multiply by 0.1. So what if we do 0.5, reload everything? I could probably make it so it clears the cache and reloads. But I actually believe that those things are copied over. So only one direction. Look, it's... Okay, that's actually right. Should be repeating itself. Nope, it's repeating itself every block. even though we've set the text chord to divide those in half. Oh, but yeah, but they are, because these are actually a block, so it is. It's spanning two things. So now if we switch back to... What am I doing wrong? Yeah, just that's bizarre. So I think we're getting some fog that comes in. But that's just also weird that it's... And yet if we don't scale the texture coordinates at all, everything is fine. In fact, the bizarre thing was, if we did this, it also did, it screwed up. Yeah. Even though it's technically not really doing any math at all, because carve scale should be 1, right? We set to 1. What the hell is going on? Yeah, see, we're back to... Alright, let me take a step back. Something I'm doing with textures is incorrect, and this is so simple. There's really nothing I can do wrong here. Unless it's the copying of the parameters that's messing something. That's like what we're copying. We're copying diffuse. Yes, we want to use material colors. Oh, actually we don't. Oh yeah, I mean, I guess we do, it's fine. Normal lookup true. Oh. Well, we're not, like, that doesn't even come into play right now. We're not doing anything with these normals. But that will, because we want... There's a model space normal. Oh yeah, so we've already figured that out up here. It's already correct by the time we get down here, so that's all right. Yeah. So we've got that fog color, diffuse texture. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I'm such an idiot. I think I know what the problem is. So, if used to be once upon a time, JMonkey Engine's default for texture wrap. What texture mode was to wrap. And normally it's really obvious when that's not the case, because you'll end up with a little version of your texture here and the edge is stretched, because now it's like default is edge clamp or something. And so it's going to stretch the edge of your texture through the whole thing. The problem is that the real geometry is like this big. We're in the center, so if we'd had a block over here, we'd see our little texture and then the edge stretched way over. So essentially that's what's happening. I don't know, wait, that doesn't, yeah, because if we use the regular texture coordinates that are built into the model itself, then then it's 0 to 1, 0 to 1, 0 to 1, and that's fine. But right now we're doing like some huge number, and so we're stretching the edge. So we should be able to, I cannot believe I spent so much time. That's such a common thing. But I am kind of used to, when I first started using JMonkey Engine in the wrap mode, that's what it's called, in 2011 or whatever it was. Set wrap mode, texture wrap mode. So set wrap, right? Set wrap. It used to be a different default, and I'm still used to that because it just makes more sense to have repeat be a default for a lot of things. For the have I screwed up? What do we want? Yeah, see, a lot of these were deprecated, and at that time, repeat was no longer the default. It's edge clamp or something like that. So repeat is what we want. And that should fix that problem. Yep. I cannot believe we spent 20 minutes or whatever on that problem. Oh, it's like shader development. There's, 100 things that can go wrong. Let's go ahead and set up our inner texture while I'm thinking about it. And God, cannot believe it. Such an idiot. Okay, so this was Bark. What did we say the other one was? Bark 128-top. Oops, -top. Ah! Okay, so there's that. So we'll check inner texture, make sure it's working too. Whoops. Asset not found? What the hell did I call it? Oh, it's a PNG. Ah, interesting. Okay. I have a lot of inconsistency. Still doesn't like it. Oh. What did I... Who's still using outer? It's telling me what line I should probably look. Line 41. Oh. Oh yeah, because that was commented out before. These are exactly backwards right now, but that's okay. Okay, so we got our inner, we got our outer. We can put back all this stuff that we commented out. That was completely right. It was all fine. Oh, and we don't want this to interpolate. What's the flat? It's like varying flat. Yeah, we definitely don't. Okay, so that should fix our problem. It should still be small, but we can say it, set it big, and that will reload. Whoa! Okay, so... Oh, JMonkey Engine is internally, because we've got this GSL compat, it's converting all of these varyings, which are supposed to be in out, to flat. And so I'm going to ignore this for the moment, because over our particular shapes it should never change. But I don't want it. Normally values in varyings interpolate from one vertex to another. They'll it will interpolate between two different values. All of our values are going to be the same, so it should never really interpolate those. But so that should let us run again. Frankly, This has taken too long. Okay, so that's all good. We should be able to come in here and say 8, because that's really what our carve scale is for this particular demo, and it should make it big. Yep. But see, here we go. Right? This is exactly what I'm talking about. These should not be little dark things. We want those to be, you know, the insides. Yeah, so I'm going to need to actually, so eventually this, so the tops and the outsides are going to be the bark. I've just, like, I'm trying to do this in steps because it's really easy to screw up. So what it'll really be is the outside will be this, and then we'll carve out the inside to be that other. So we should be good. And what do I want to say? I want to say now we need smarter things. We need another varying that we really do want to vary. That's going to be how deep we are in our particular direction. And so, you know, so if we're facing up, then our texture depth is whatever the other value is, model space y in this case, divided by the carve scale. Okay, and so for each of these we pick whatever the direction we're facing is. So if this is zy, this is x. If this is xy, then this is z. Okay, so we have a texture depth, and we can use that to pick between so basically based on the shell margin we've created, we can go in the frag shader and we can select between two different textures depending on what our shell margin is. But for now, I think we'll just see if we need to pull that varying in. Where do I want to put it? Up here. That's fine. I'll organize these later. I always say that. You can see from my shaders are a mess. I never go back and organize them. Texture depth. Okay, so if texture depth is greater than, shell margin is also going to be fixed, so we'll make that a define as well. So when in JMonkey Engine, when you define when you do these, it makes a pound define shell margin for this value because the value will never change. We don't have to waste time looking it up. It will actually essentially paste that raw value, whatever it is that we set here, or whatever it is we set here, shell margin 0.0625, anywhere in my shader. Instead of referencing a variable, it will actually just copy that in as it will copy 0.06625. It will copy that number right in as a constant. Shell margin. Okay, if we're greater than shell margin, just set it to red, basically, just to see if it's working. Right? Do a lot of this in shader debugging. Else, if texture margin is less than 1.0 minus shell margin, that's going to be a problem for repeats. But we'll see. We'll get there. Yeah, because when I set that to 8, I'm actually wrong. That's gonna. Oh boy. Everything's red, so I did something wrong. Shell margin must be 0. Let's set it to 0.5, which essentially should make it not work at all. It did do something. Okay, so there's a very narrow strip of the thing that's correct. What we want to do, so here's a trick, right? Instead of using the real value, let's make sure our margin is what we think it is. Our texture depth is what we think it is. Oh, crap. Okay. Okay, we have to restart. Now I'm wishing I really did put the material reload in. Okay. That's actually not what I wanted. Okay, so we're just dividing and we're not normalizing. That's the issue. Yeah, so we want to modulo. We want the texture depth modulo, not shell margin, but scale, not scale. Just 1, because it's already 0 to 1 here. And we want to do that before we... Yeah. I'm talking to myself now. So this should be dark. That is also not what we want. Okay, so let's get rid of this for the time being. Texture depth. Let's just set it to let's just set to Y for a second. Just to make sure we've got some trail of sanity. Yeah, I really do wish I had added shader reloading here. Okay, so that is sane. That's what we expect. And the reason we get some black up here is because it's starting to, you know, float error gets here where it's, I think, oh, we didn't modulo. Oh, we're doing modulo over here. Right. Yeah. We should really be doing it on the other side. No, that screws up the, anyway. So we're starting over at the black here as it, you know, creeps up. So the texture depth is what we expect it to be in that direction, at least. So why is it not doing it in the other? Let's work with this for a second. We want the float shell distance. So I'll just call it shell dist. We want this to be the absolute value of Wait, what do I want? I want it at 0. I want the distance between 0 and 1. We want the absolute value of the distance between texture depth and the floor of texture. No, because if we wanted this, the round. Does shaders support rounding? Does anybody know? Round, it does. Since 1.3. So let's see if that is working. Yeah, I want to round it because if I want the distance to the closest 0, 1 boundary. So if I'm up here, I want the distance between here and here, and if I'm down here, I want the distance between here and here, because I'm trying to decide if it's inside the shell, and the shell will repeat, and so that makes it tougher. So we want, I think, the round of texture depth, and let us make sure. Aren't they called? I can't see what. I hate this little thing. It's telling me it's covering up my. The floor func will give me no matter what. So, no matter where the point is between here and here, the floor is always going to take me down to here, right? And I want to know. Yeah. Aren't they the cell or floor function? But I want to know, if I'm up here, I want the distance between here, and if I'm down here, I want the distance between here, and if I'm in the middle somewhere, I want the distance between wherever is closest. And so that's what round will give me. So mod, no, we just want, let's just see what shell, okay, I already did that. So let's just see what shell dist is. And we're gonna have to start over. So yeah, I hate this. I wish I could move it. I don't want it. And I would turn it off if I could. Okay. Yeah, so now see, as we get closer, it's black as it gets closer to these edges. And in fact, what we really want to be testing, because I need to make sure repeat works okay. So what I really want to be testing is if this is 4 like I originally had it. I was smart before and I got dumb later. And the shell margin is currently set. Yeah, so I want it to repeat at least twice. Because later I need to make sure that vertical repeats correctly and horizontal repeats correctly. And so we want to set, we can put the margin back because we're not even using it. But now if I look, I can use that margin as a threshold. So I can put this back. So if we're, okay, so now I actually need, I just need if shell dist is less than shell margin, then we'll set the color red. So we should be able to see, I leave all this commented out code. So we should get a red shell around our, or the other way around. I can't remember. Oh boy, shell. Pfft. Completely unforgiving to simple typos. Computers, man, so literal. One day they won't be literal. Yeah, see, this is exactly what we want. So one day they won't be literal, and we'll be in a world of hurt for small mistakes that they misinterpret. Okay, so that's what we want. And so like within this boundary, we would pick a different texture in whatever this direction is, you know, so, but I need it to work in all directions, not just X, Y. So I need to debug why it wasn't working when it was like this. shall see. Maybe it was that round situation. Yeah. Okay, this is working. No. This is not. This is not. Actually, these are. But no, this is working. Because we don't have borders in our textures yet. Yeah, that part, the fact that this is supposed to be bark and this is supposed to be raw wood, that's a texture selection problem, and that's what we're trying to cover here. But we're only selecting the texture in a particular direction, so this is actually working okay. Wait, why is this red? Oh, because this is where it repeats. Yeah. Like if we set this back to 8. Yeah, so this is, yeah, so that's if there's no repeat at all. I'm going to put the repeat back, and now we can start selecting between textures based on whether we're inside the threshold or outside the threshold. You'll see what I'm talking about, but I have to so does, I don't know if I can refer to, I think I can refer to a sampler 2D in a variable. Can I do this? Will it let me do that? Let's see if I can do that. I actually don't know. Let's see if it blows up. Nope. Yep, you can't do it. Only in varyings. So that means we have to do this. If, yeah, so make the shell distance up here. And then if the shell distance is less than the shell margin, then diffuse color equals the regular diffuse map. We're in the shell. Else, it needs to be inner diffuse map. And I need to declare that at the top. Oh, we need to get rid of that. Okay, we're getting closer, guys. Trust me on this. Okay, so we'll assume that there is one for the moment. Alright, let's see what blows up now. Aha! That's exactly what we wanted. Now, I'll show you what I mean. It looks confusing here because I'm testing that repeat, but if I put this back to 8, you'll see the effect that we're going for. Right? We've chopped into this block. So all the way on the outside and within that threshold, it will be that bark. So it looks like it's got a thickness. And then in the inside, yeah, this is nice. So then on the inside, it's got the meaty wood pulp. So this is essentially the effect I'm going for. I need to have a different texture for top and bottom. So that, and it's unfortunate that we get a little dirt there. Yeah, there you go. So I need a different texture for you know, east, west, north, south versus top, bottom. Because in this case, we'd actually want the top and bottom to be different. But this will get us to the point where, so you can kind of see what the effect is supposed to be, right? And so the rest is kind of detail, where I have to have not just a inner diffuse map and an outer diffuse map, but I need outer diffuse map from all the different directions. I need to be able to specify margins in 2 different directions. I think most of my stuff can deal with, you know, an XZ margin and a Y margin as separate values. But this is what I wanted to do. So I think we're going to switch gears for a minute to do the spatial warping, because that's something I can hack into the vertex shader. So the idea here is that we go ahead and we've got this, first of all, we want to move this down. Okay, so we don't want to make our GL position too soon, because we want our model space position to be unwarped for the texture and the depth selection. And then we want to warp here, warp the model position based on shape and center. So we're going to have to make a center because like normally I wouldn't, because I'd just use, you know, half of whatever the carve scale is. Yes, but then I would have to create custom shapes for all of that, and these outer blocks, these outer bark is not a full block width, you see. Like even at this scale, it's not a full block width, and actually the real scale is so the real scale is like this, okay? And so this is not even a block width. This would be a block width, so I can't actually do it. It's very inflexible, and by doing this, I can support weird shapes too. So like if the border, you know, varies a little bit, I can technically deal with that. It can deal with any size border, thin skin of an apple, thick bark of a tree. I can deal with all those, and best of all, I can like do weird shapes that might not be so straightforward to turn into blocks. Like if like these angles here, I can't necessarily turn that little angle piece into thing. So this is like a really interesting way of solving the problem, I think. I've not seen it done before, but I'm sure it has, because I'm not like a genius or anything. Sometimes I just have a wealth of old school tricks that I know how to pull out, and tricky things, and I spend a lot of time thinking about this. So so sometimes something lateral thinking occurs. And okay, anyway, so let's what I want to do is, based on some center, let's call it the, what is it, what do we call them, vectors, vector 3 warp center, and we will make sure to set the what is the center. We can actually ask it. Test center. Test object. Say get world bound. Get center. It's going to tell us it is. No. That can't be right. Can it? Let's just log the whole world bound. That can't be right. That's unfortunate. I mean, maybe it is. It's possible that I normalized the geometry before saving it, but then some of the things we've been seeing don't make any sense. Alright, well, I'm going to have to shut this down for a second anyway. Let's... What did it tell me the bound was? There's no way that that's true. Center. There's just no way. Alright. What do we call it? We called it warp center. So I'm going to turn this into a sphere because I think that will be illustrative enough to show what I'm trying to do, especially since we didn't do different top bottom textures yet. So new vector 3f. I think I've imported math. Yep. Okay, so I mean, oh well, you know what, I was doing world bound instead of model bound. So let's assume for a second that this should be 1f, 1f, 1f. Maybe these are already subdivided into little blocks. Still, okay. Well, it'll just make the warp look weird at worst. Maybe we should do some tests. Where's my thing? There it is. Varying vec 3 m. Oh, it's not a varying. It's a uniform. Warp center. The creamy warp center of your warped geometry. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to what do we want to do? What is, I've done this operation before, but now the math escapes me. I'm trying to think. So given a 3D coordinate like this, oh, this based on a theoretical max radius, I think I project it out to the box, take the distance of that, so I think for any given point, like this point right here, from the center I build a vector out here and I project it all the way out to the box. And so I figure out what the distance between here and here is, and the distance between here and here, and then I divide this by this and multiply that by, you know, the actual radius, which would be, you know, 1.0 in this case, or whatever. But because I'm notoriously bad at math when I'm on a live stream, I'm trying to think how to do this in pieces, because it's this project to the outside. It's based on this and this and this and this. They're similar triangles. There's a dot product in here somewhere, I'm sure. Yeah, so okay, so that's the other thing. So Okay, so let me take this out of here for a second. Dot products are magic, guys. You should really learn how to use them. So this is this line right here to here, right? So we've got this. That's the center of the circle. And this is the edge of our box. And we're trying to find where this is in relation to our ideal radius. And so we can take a dot product, which is essentially going to give us the projected distance along here. But then I have to pick one. But this ratio is already the ratio we should use for our radius. No, that's not right either. It's a straightforward formula. It just escapes me. I think it's straightforward. Giving this out to here. Yeah, the ratio of this to this is the same as the ratio of this to this rotated around. Yeah. But why won't that work? That definitely won't work. This is why you don't do math in front of an audience. Yeah, because I don't want to know here. I want to know here. I want to know where this would rotate and intersect with that. And that implies I would have to find the angle, but I'm pretty sure I do not. Because, okay, so this distance here, this projected distance, if I take this larger distance over this and multiply that by my vector, that will project my vector all the way out to here. And so that is my overall radius. And then I can take this distance over that. And so like if this is R1 and this is, big R, I can take R1 over R, multiply that by what my actual radius 1.0 or whatever it is, and that will give me where I would have projected onto here. I think that's true. The problem is it's non-trivial to debug if that is not the case. And one might go, where is the trig? And the trig is that square root, basically, and the dot product. So if we say, how do I make sure my center is right to begin with? I can find my center by setting model space position equal to the absolute value of model space position minus m warp center, which will kind of act like a threshold. It will reflect all the geometry around wherever the center is, and so it should be obvious then where the center is. Let's see if I forgot something else. Yep. That's important to remember too. I thought model space position was vec3. Okay. Why don't I trust? No, that shouldn't have worked. Oh, so so the center must be way over here somewhere. I was right about that. The code. Yeah, why is... Yeah. Yeah, the trick is like when you're doing the math in the shader. Um, uh, so this is not doing anything. So theoretically, I'm either working way back here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's make it just really big. 23. 23. Nope. What about... So maybe it's not even doing what I want it to do. Yeah, it's definitely not even doing what I want it to do. So I need to debug this in a different way. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Again. Simple typo, right? Magnitudes of difference. Okay, so let's go back to what we were doing before, because I was pretty sure this would cause some problem somewhere. Again, if the center's way below our minimum value, then it's not going to do anything. Okay, but we are reflecting in the one, so I think, yeah, see, we have reflected somewhere. Okay, yeah, so if I set y to 0, that should be fine. Yeah, okay, so we should be able to then zero in on... Essentially, we're going to... we've created a minimum threshold, so as we get larger, we're going to chip away at one of these. So if I set this to 4, what happens? Something happened. Because it reflected over into the other... Yeah, so... I wonder if we're really removing the old version. Interesting. So if I do this as 4... it's like we only have... It's like we keep replacing it. I think every time we crash, it might leave the old one behind. Or something. Yeah, so... This is not as clear as I thought it would be. We're definitely moving it. Like if I stop resetting the camera every time, let's set this back to 1, 0, 1. Yeah, it's not removing our old one. I guess it's not really setting the binding variable. I think I have to... That's code I stole from one of my other things, but I think I had to have set the texture box as a... Yeah. So, okay. So if I do this... Okay, so now it won't be leaving our doo-doo behind. That was probably causing some other weird things that we were seeing earlier, but all right. Oh yes, I'm not resetting the... Okay, so there is where it is now. If I move these, if I move that to 2, Did it actually? Let's move it. Let's make it big, like 5. It shouldn't be reflecting though. The way I thought it should be working is, you know, things that are greater than warp center would still be there. Things that are less than warp center would be reflected. And then we could see where the center was. Oh, that's not what I want. Let's make that 15. Okay, so it's moving it way over here. The other thing is I would expect it to be inside out. So let's move it. Yeah, so we're just moving it around. Oh, I think it's not going to reflect until... Yeah, so it's way the hell out here. I was pretty close with this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so if we probably did 20, it would start to... yeah, there we go. Yeah, now we're cooking, because it basically is putting it back into 0, 0 range. So 2020. Yeah, it's again, I just can't think straight. So yeah, so we've got a quarter of it reflected. So that's the real center, I believe. Let's back it off by let's do 19 just to see. Because I think I had it 2 of these big blocks, right? So let's just assume it's 2020. Oh, and the other thing we could do to move it back to where it was supposed to be, that's the thing I forgot to do, which is you want to say then at least it won't move the geometry, it will only reflect it around the center. So now we should have our geometry reflected around the center, and it shouldn't have moved at all. Yeah, there we go. And let me put my camera adjustment back. So it resets this every time. Yeah, so there we go. So it is the center. And so now I can... so that's our test. And so we want to say... it's not the projection, it's the relative position, and it's going to be this, and we want the distance. I'm thinking Java. Dist. Distance. Or length. Length. Okay, and then what is the dot product in GL? Is it just dot? Yep. Yep. But we need to dot it with the best vector. So for the moment we're just going to do a cylinder. I was going to do a sphere, but then I have to deal with 3 different directions. So if the I say Rx equals ABS X float RZ, oops. Okay. If Rx is greater than RZ, then that's the one we want. The Rx, that is the dot product. like the dot product with this vector is just going to be that value. So then if we want to project it out, we would right now, carve scale is 8. We want half of that. So let's just do the one direction for a second. Ratio equals Rx over carve scale times 0.5. And then, so our projected distance would be, yeah, see, this doesn't really get me what I want to get. What was I looking at again? Okay, so yeah, so the distance, which we already calculated, times this over this should give me that, right? Projected equals ratio. Wait a minute. Yeah. Ratio times distance. Right? Or is it ratio over distance? We wanted actually this value over this value. We got it backwards. I got it backwards. Okay, so that'll project it out. And then let's just go ahead and so I don't have to keep repeating this. Okay, so radius, projection, ratio, distance. And then we want to multiply xy by okay, so distance is here. Oh, once we've projected this out, I need to take the distance of that as well. So proj_dist equals relative pos.xy time, because we're just doing it in, so project it out and take the length of that. Okay, so the projection over the projection distance is what I want to multiply my xy by. So like proj scale is proj over proj distance. But now that's if I multiply no, that is proj, that's distance. I'm getting all confused now. Okay. So proj over proj distance times radius will give me this value. And how does that help me? I still need to bring it back in here, which I already had. Yeah, and so if it's like way out, so if my thing is way out here, I am actually finding this value. So it's going to be, I'm not sure I should be doing this math on a live stream. Talking about it while I do it is definitely taking more than half of my brain power. So yeah, so yeah, so none of these ratios do what I want to do. I just real feel like I can do this without resorting to inverse cosines and things. Because I've done it. I just need to find that code, I guess. Yeah, I warped. I did it for my book pages when I warped them. That was a mesh warping. But you know, I was doing that based on. We always want to go smaller, so whatever this distance is, we want to come in. Unless we are already on. Is it this distance I want? Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do anything smart in the next 13 minutes. Because this is definitely the right idea. Because if you think about the corner case, you know, our distance is going to be square root of 2, 1.444 or whatever, and we want it to be 1. And so whatever we do, we want to multiply our xy by, like if this was the point, right? We want to multiply our xy by you know, 1 over square root of 2 to get it into here somewhere. But that's only if we're fully here. So, yes. So, this distance would be 1 over this, that would be the square root of 2. And we want it to be in here. Should be closer to right here, right? We want it to be in here, which is r. Right, this distance is r. And so but if it's here, we want to be less because this distance, yes, this distance is less than square root of 2. It's some here. So there is a ratio. So let's think about this first case. So we already know square root of 2 at r. And we want, so then we need r over square root of 2 in this case. And square root of 2 is the distance. So r over distance. Yeah, is it really just that? I'm being dumb on the live stream. It really is just that simple. R over the distance. Yep. No, nothing fancy. So we're just going to do it in the xy plane. Relative pos xz, I love swizzling, equals, yeah, that's the relative pos. So relative pos x equal times equals, what did I say, radius over distance? That's going to multiply it out if it's less. That's not right. Radius over distance. If distance is less, like here, we're going to move it out. No, because we need to figure out how much of radius. That's what I was trying to do with the projections. This is when it's fully out, but we need to figure out what our projection would be in here. But it's this. Right? No. Yes, because this is our... Let's just, for the sake of argument for a second, let me show you what I'm trying to do. So if the distance is greater than the radius, we'll do this. All right. And then we'll add model space pos equals warp center. Oops. Plus relative. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so let's just see what that did. Yeah, because at the outside it's easy. That's the problem. We're trying to figure out what the ratio should be. What radius should we be using? Because it's not the full radius. It's I believe it's the dot product, which we can calculate. Oh. Complaining about normal typos, not shader specific typos. If I did this right, the outside should be curved. Okay, blah blah blah. Invalid operands to divide. On line 287, or is it 287? 789. Radius divided by distance. Do I need to put that in a... order of operations, kids. It's important. No. I'm being stupid somewhere, right? Oh, distance. It's a function, not... yeah, blah, 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 blah. I think it's probably telling me that, yeah. Shaders are so unforgiving. Model space public, so I did, yeah, so... it's because the model space position is a vec4 for some reason. Alright. Oh, that's funny. I didn't expect it to... I mean, basically the outside is round, right? Anything greater than that circle. But I didn't expect it to get narrower at the top. There's a Y being used in there somewhere. Oh, because distance length. Yeah. Because we're including. That's neat, though. It made it like a Coke bottle. That's funny. Okay. So see, that's what I'm going for on the outside. But it's not doing it on all the inside ones. And I think... I really think that this radius is really whatever the max of relative pos x or y is in this case. Like I said, I've done this before in different contexts. So let's see. But sometimes you work things out and you miss a step and you end up, and you end up accidentally removing all the trig, multiplying out all the trig. But I think one side of this is working right. And then we've reflected it somehow. This needs to be an absolute value because we've got negative radius. Okay. I'm glad I might have actually done something smart before the live stream ends. This should make a cylinder. No. Somebody else is similarly... Yeah, so something else needs to be absolute value. But we're getting closer. You can see we're getting this weird inversion on the negative sync. But in the positive quadrant, things are working more or less exactly like I want. We've got a tree trunk. And there's no value here, so we can't see that it's doing the same thing over here. But these are essentially flipping inside out because of a sign issue. So radius over dist. Radius is always going to be... We need the maximum of the absolute values. Otherwise, the positive values are always going to be picked over the negative values, which is exactly what was happening. This will fix it. Pretty confident. Tree trunk! There we go. Yeah, they're always visually interesting, right? So now we have a chopped tree trunk, right? I can't chop it in this app, but so that's not bad. Why do we get a little sliver there? Oh, because the geometry is slivered there. It's just warped a little. That's a I think that's a partial block, but it's warped because of the new warping. And so those edges don't line up anymore. I think we should be still solid, though. No, the fact that we see through, it's actually a problem. I think I need to only do this warping on... Anyway, I actually am okay with this. If that's the biggest problem, that we have these little cracks, 100% okay with this, because we're going to be kind of back in this direction, right? And I could always make the texture two-sided. I think that would fix a lot of the problems. But anyway, that's sort of the effect I want. And actually that means that turning this into a cylinder is not any harder than that. So let's leave this as the cylinder version. I mean, turning this into a sphere. So let's do the spherical version. We still want the relative position. We still want to put it back when we're done. But now, instead of this, does max take only 2 values, or can you pass a list? Alright, a whole bunch of values. Let's see. GLSL max. Can I pass more than 2? No. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's actually complicated for them. So then we want another max ABS relative pos dot y. So the maximum of any of the directions, that's our radius. And relative position, yes. Distance, we want the actual distance this time of all of x, of the whole thing. And oh, that actually might be why. It's because I still had that if in there, so it's actually not doing the ones in the middle. Interesting. Well, it actually should never be hit in this case, now that I think about it. So relative distance. So that's actually should work. Let's see if we get a sphere now. I knew this math was not hard. Oops. Okay, I've done something. What is it telling me? Unable to find compatible overload function ABS float. Oh. Yeah. Okay, and we were missing a parenthesis. I think that is it. Yeah, it was telling us it missed a parenthesis. Amazing. Oh, that's not right. Oh, because my okay, actually that is right because my center is down here. That's cool. So we've warped space here. Yeah, so see, as it goes up, it's warping out. That's interesting. I wouldn't have expected it to realign on that boundary, but let's, we can fix that in here by moving, let's see. We've already decided that this was 20, oops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so these are 1, 1, 1. So we need to go up 4, I think. There we go. A ball. I think that some weirdness happens in the center. So probably less than a certain amount. We want to not do it because there's a singularity problem. But there's a ball, and so if that had been, you know, apple core with a skin on it, we could carve it up. I want to see the cylinder again one more time before we finish. It's weird that yeah, hopefully this issue isn't because we're doing it twice. Like maybe that's not doing anything that I want. Okay, so we're back to the cylinder. And again, in the center here, yeah, we probably had a divide by 0 error. So probably, yeah, so if dist is greater than 0. Okay, so let's try that. Woo! The 5 of you who stuck around, man, I hope the payoff's worth it. Oh no, it's still not right. It's okay. Yeah, so it carves out a center. Oh, I put it in the wrong half of that. Yeah. So this needs to be... There we go. I was going to say, why did nothing change? So I hope you guys had a good time on this crazy journey into shader development. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's a beautiful thing. And so the neat thing is, you know, integrating this into the engine is non-trivial, right? But it is at least doable. But the neat thing is as you chop it with your axe, you know, I can use all of the same, you know, block replacement stuff that I'm using now, only it will stay textured correctly. And so as you chop through the outer shell, you'll get through the bark and you'll have, you know, chunks of wood coming out and stuff. I think this is going to be cool. Yeah, that's neat. And so there'll be a different texture on top, of course, to represent things. But that's cool. All right. We got 2 things working. That's going to be neat. Yeah, so these little glitches, not anything I can do about it, I think. I think if I made it double-sided, they would at least be hidden by darkness. So let me just try that real quick while you guys are here. I should be able to say mat.get or additional render state set call face call mode. We want render state. Is it set face call mode? Yep. And we want render state face call mode off. Okay, so now when we see through, yeah, see, at least it's dark, right? You won't see castles and things through the background, because if you're inside, you'll actually see the, so at least if it's going to be buggy and have cracks, at least, those should be normally standing out here, right? But so there'll just be those dark sections. I think that's acceptable, personally. Yeah, the forced competition for the best tree chopping. I just think there's this creates a lot of interesting possibilities for crafting and other things. Being able to warp space like this for a given object has some potential. Yeah, see, even the texture on the outside is not so bad. It's not going to line up properly with the full-size version, but I think that's okay. Anyway, we're basically working incrementally towards something cooler, and so every step along the way that's a little cooler is great. And so I need to make, again, a different texture so that we don't have these top and bottom layers, just the side ones. And so I basically need to make a version of that top that doesn't have this and just has vertical lines instead of this chip choppy pattern. And so this would only be for textures pointing up, and then there'd be one. I mean, I can show you what it would look like, right? It would yes, let's just do a quick and dirty version of what I'm talking about. So if I take that, copy it, paste it as a new layer, transform scale, whoops, we want to transform, whoops, edit, transform scale, and then turn off the, just want to go like all the way down here, and all the way up here. So we want like a texture like that would be just for the side. I'm not going to do that on the live stream. So wait. Yeah, I have to decide how much I'm going to let that happen. I kind of want, so in the game, let me go ahead and kill this. So I think we talked about this a little bit before, but whoops. We don't want it to rim, we want it to run. So apparently we got somebody else who joined at the last minute. Nice. So let me go in here and give an example of what I'm talking about. When we chop things up, they don't stay. And currently, of course, it's still blocky. I need to make it do the cool chopping with the partial blocks and stuff too. But let me come on. Come on. I just want to talk about something. Come on. I'm never more impatient than I am when I'm on the live stream. But yeah, I agree, and that's why I want to support that. It was not my original plan, but man, chopping these things is kind of cool, and I can see the desire to do that. Plus, okay, I'm gonna we're going to go on a tangent for a minute. Those of you who stuck around this long, we'll get some potential spoilers for things that might happen. Again, I'm not promising anything. These are just things that I plan to do that may turn out to be impossible. So let's like bring in a stone block for a second. But don't let me forget to talk about the airship for a second. So let's put a stone block here. Now if I grab my axe or my pickaxe, it doesn't really matter. So we do swing down, boink, 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 right? So if I, there's a still a problem with the swinging. If I bump this with my feet, it interrupts the swing. So eventually, these will be maybe we can like have more control over where we chisel. There's a mode I want to enter where you can zoom in on something. So like if you wanted to place wood for a campfire, you'd go to like a placement mode and it would zoom in on that area, and you'd get to like place the logs exactly where you want and light the fire, with your kindling or whatever. That's the idea. And so similarly here, where you could like specifically get more specific in your carving, but normally you'd just be chopping away because you just want to mine things. But then to be able to right click on this object and say freeze it, because if we wait long enough, this is going to revert back to its solid form. I don't want to leave all these partial chipped objects all over the world. Like these are actually objects that I prevent dragging now, but they're actually real objects in the world, just like all those tables and chairs and things. And I don't want to, that gets very expensive if you're carving caves into a mountain, so they need to revert. If you haven't chipped them away beyond some threshold, then they need to revert back to a partial block that closely represents this, so that maybe this would turn back into a ramp. But I do want to give players the ability to kind of have like a special carving tool that they can use and say then freeze it so that it does stay. And that gets extended into, let's say my airship here takes damage, or I decide I want to hack off a part of it. Right now this airship is an object on its own, but if I can edit any object, so I can't, because I'm standing on this object, I can't actually chop with my axe. That's because it thinks I'm clicking on the anyway. Right. So the idea being that if my boat took damage, that maybe it would chip this piece out, and that would change the scale of this one little part. I like that idea. And so as this idea gets more advanced, it will get used for more things, because once the capability is there, I can think of like 50 different ways to use it. So I'm kind of excited about that. Anyway, I can't wait till I can sail these, float them around in the world. That'd be so cool. All right. Anything else we want to talk about before I sign off? I'm going to go ahead and start shutting things down. I really appreciate you guys hanging out for so long. I'm glad we finally got some cool looking stuff at the end. There will not be a live stream next week because my high school senior is in a musical. They're doing Big Fish. It's going to be great. Cars win never. Why would you have cars when you can already have flying vehicles? Like we drive cars and we dream of flying vehicles. If you never had to have a car, why would you just fly everywhere? At any rate, so there will not be a live stream next week because I'm going to all 4 shows, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and Saturday night. So I will not be able to do a live stream next weekend, but I'll be thinking about you guys. Anyway, drill machines, there you go. So thanks for watching. If you are one of the 6 or 5 people that have made it this far, please like the video, and if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. You guys are hardcore. I appreciate that. Comment on the video if you think of something you'd like to say, and thanks again to the patrons. Otherwise, you guys have a great, productive 2 weeks, and if you're on the Discord, I'll see you on the Discord. Thanks a lot, guys.